I bought Ark when I was 8 years old, and I've played it ever since. This is over 10 years, but I've never actually taken the time to sit there and beat the game. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to do 100% of everything there is to do on the island. And I like to think I'm decent, so we're going to do it on hardcore mode. First thing was first, we had to boot up a whole new Steam account, so we had 0 achievements. And then turn on that hardcore setting, and start it all off. First thing was first though, like any game, we had to punch a tree, make ourselves our first pickaxe, a couple other tools as well, and then finally put on some drip. Next up, we put down a foundation and a storage box to make our first base. And then we had to protect our base from our delinquent neighbors in our first epic battle. And then I found this poor orphan baby with no parents. After this, we upgraded our base with the mortar and pestle. We're pretty proud of ourselves at this point. After this, we set out to try and find ourselves a parasaur, which was the goal to be our next tame. But then I stumbled upon a baryonyx that was just doing circles, so I hightailed it out of there. Then while I was running away, I accidentally ended up taming a pego, so I named it Chase, and that's my name because I also was not an accident. And then back at home, we found a 145 PT just hanging out, so we bowled him and just beat the shit out of him until he needed to take a nap. Then after killing a local baby, our 4th tame was named Edward. And then after a little bit of farming, we were able to place a forge. And then our footage cut, but we did get a smithy and our dodo burnt to death in our forge. After a long night of picking berries, we were able to watch the sunrise on our first morning. So I placed a flag to celebrate and to mark our first home. The next day it was back to work as we bowled a parasaur and shot him in the face until he also needed a nap. Then after not long, our 5th tame was named Tina. So we rode Tina home and got a whole lot of berries so we could craft up some narcotics. And then we sniped an Ichthyi, and then we got attacked by our own Dillo, so that was fun. Anyways, back to progression, we ended up taking out the whole Ninja Turtles clan to get some keratin for our Pteranodon saddle. After this, we immediately mounted up Edward and wasted no time going on our first, real official metal run. Taking Tina for a quick little wood run, we were able to smelt it all up. While it was smelting, we upgraded our drip to hide from cloth, and then flew all the way to the opposite side of the map to find our new base spot, which was this little spot in the ice. I immediately started farming because we would need stone structures to protect us from not only the cold, but also all the dangerous creatures that were going to live around here. But then while I was doing this, I turned around and there was an RG and a Carno fighting, on top of my base. So I immediately ran, got attacked once, and I was already at half health because it was really cold. But then I was able to get inside and hide. And the guy wouldn't leave, so I had to take care of him somehow. So I decided to pick up a wall, try to turn it into a window. But right as I did this, Edward flew down and basically guided it right into me. Edward had a master plan though, because he led it to a mammoth that was able to take care of it, saving our lives. So I took the time to quickly finish up our little hut, and this would be our starter base that protects us from the cold. I then upgraded from the cheap clothes to metal. Next thing I wanted was an RG, so I farmed up a bunch of wood, and then I had to hide from the cold, and then I went back outside, farmed up a bunch of stone, and then I had to hide from the cold, and then we did this a couple times over and over until eventually we were able to craft up a little trap. So I ran on over and agitated the guy that was just minding his business near our base. And then after a little bit of bobbing and weaving, I did end up getting him to fly inside the trap behind me. And then I had to hide from the cold. After I was warmed up though, I went back outside and I got him knocked out. It was pretty quick, it was not the super highest level. And then I had to go hide from the cold again. It's a common theme here. Then after some aerial warfare with our guy Edward, we were able to get a little bit of prime meat from this RG, and our 6th tame was ours. And we went ahead and named her Baltimore. Not sure why, I just liked the name. Then after sacrificing the scorpion for the saddle, we were flying home and saw a car burning up in the lava, which was a free gigaheart that we would need later. Returning home, we would need more tames, so I had to do a lot of farming by hand in order to make a little 1x1 trap for all the dinosaurs, like a Doedicurus that I could fly in there. And then while we were out looking for a Doedic, we ended up finding a level 120 unicorn, which was cool. And then we found whatever this is. After this, flying in the redwoods, we had our very first close call with this Thyla who decided to jump me. I was even looking out. So I thought it was over because I'm on hardcore mode, but after a while of struggling, he did let me go, but I wasn't off the hook yet. He was still just kind of hanging around, pestering me. And then luckily our RG was able to scare him off, so I could whistle passive whistle follow to bring him back, and we were safe. For a second though, I thought it was over. I mean, my health was looking real low at this point. After that though, we were able to find a Doedicurus and then fly him home successfully, putting him in the trap. And after his couple trank darts, he was out. But while I was feeding our unconscious friend, another guy decided to show up, that being a Sabertooth. Luckily it was downhill, so he kind of launched me forward and I was able to bola him up, and then the RG could take care of him. After this fiasco though, we had our 6th tame, and then we go ahead and named him Wilbur. Wilbur was immediately put to work, but does it really work if you're doing what you love? Wilbur's help was immediately used to go ahead and set ourselves up a trap, because our next goal was to go ahead and tame a mammoth who would take care of the wood department. Luckily there was a high level mammoth, so we were able to just go ahead and get him on over to the trap, and he went in really easily, which is kind of rare in ASA. But after we quickly disposed of his friend here, who was also a mother, we were able to trank him down a couple times, and all of a sudden he was unconscious. But while we were feeding this guy, another freaking Sabertooth decided to show up, so he did end up hitting the mammoth, but it's okay because we bullied him and punished him. Despite this, our 7th tame is still going to be very useful. We went ahead and named him Philip, and Philip was also immediately put into the workforce, except he doesn't enjoy his job as much. After we were farming wood, we went ahead and did a celebratory drum session on his back, but this totally glitched out my character. So I took the opportunity to skateboard on the back of Edward, look like a surfer. It was back to work after this though, because we did go ahead and swoop up an Ankylosaurus, saving its life in the process, and then go ahead and got him stuck on our door and knocked him out. Soon enough, our 8th tame was named Shannon. Shannon, just like the others, was immediately exploited for our monetary value. And it's at this point that I want to mention, if I included all the farming, this video would be 10 hours long. So at this point, I'm just going to cut out all the farming, but trust me, I'm still doing it. I was getting real tired of all these Sabertooths coming in and messing up my tame, so I did decide to build a big old wall around kind of the compound that I wanted to claim for the future. Then I went back inside and crafted up a long neck as well as some ammo for it. I then searched for about a little bit over an hour and a half, but eventually I was able to find this 140 Baryonyx, which if you haven't guessed by now is our goal to tame next. I decided I didn't need to trap him, especially with him not being able to get picked up by an RG, but this ended up taking way too many darts, but eventually he did go down and was ready to be tamed. Before we knew it, our 9th tame was all ours, and we went ahead and named him Toby. We then repeated the exact same process on a low-level female to get Toby a girlfriend, who we named Ballerina. Now that we were moving up in the world a little bit, we needed a bigger home. So I made a small base, a little bit of an extension from the first one, the dinosaur gate, so I can get all my tames in there if I needed to. And then to finish it off, I did the interior and finally crafted ourselves a fabricator. And now that we had a fabricator, I didn't want to keep farming gasoline to run it, so I wanted to get a wind turbine. But that means we needed electronics, which means we needed to get silica pearls. So the next thing I did was go to this freezing cold river that actually almost killed me to get some pearls. And then when I returned home, I made a little bit of gasoline, then crafted a windmill as well as some polymer. I also crafted a fridge. I apologize, I forgot to hit record. It's the next day now, but I was able to dino wipe and get us some penguins. And then I spent a good portion of the next day making a little penguin shack and breeding penguin. I did have to spend some resources though to get some air conditioners for them, because despite them being penguins, it was actually still too cold for their eggs to hatch. Then that night they had a rude awakening when I truly showed them why they were here. But their sacrifice was not in vain, because this allowed me to craft an egg incubator. I then watched Toby and Ballerina get it on for way too long because I wanted to get all the good stats onto a baby so I could imprint for the caves. And then when I finally got all the stats, it turned out to be triplets, but I only needed one, so... And then while I was waiting for imprints, I did my best to organize my Kairuku army, but I mean, it was just a mosh pit. Anyways, after this, I went back and named our Baryonyx Alfred the Creamsicle, who was going to be our new cave mount. Alfred was a really easy imprint. All I wanted to do was go on one walk and then cuddle twice, and he was all ready to go. I then made a wall where I could display all of the artifacts that we were going to be collecting very soon. We then were very excited and set out to get our first artifact, which would be the Artifact of the Hunter. But first, we needed a quick pit stop to get a very important creature for the rest of this run, which would be an otter. And we then found one right outside the redwoods who tamed up in one bite, making our 11th tame named Cotton. And with nothing holding us back, we dove headfirst into this first cave, and Alfred handled it with no difficulty at all, just absolutely melted through big groups of enemies. It didn't take long to get both Explorer notes and pull up on the artifact room before we collected the artifact 3 times, once for each difficulty of the boss fight, and gave all 3 to Cotton to transport back home for the artifact wall. So because it was our first cave, we were a little bit nervous, but this gave us a good sense of confidence going forward. I was on the way to the obelisk to craft some cryopods, but I had to write down in my notes here, this game is gorgeous. I mean, this view shocked me for a little bit. Anyways, it was back to business as I headed to the obelisk to craft a cryofridge and 31 cryopods. The next day was spent preparing for the artifact of the massive cave, which was our next goal, but this cave has bats that carry AIDS, and it basically kills you for 75 seconds, and usually I just play sleeping bags and respawn. But this is hardcore, and I'm not about to lose this run to some nasty bats. So I did go home and craft a bunch of lesser antidotes. We then made our way into the cave. Other than a little bit of parkour and the frickin' Ebola that the bats carry, this cave wasn't much different from the other. I mean, the Baryonyx is a godsend, it's just absolutely insane for all the caves. But yeah, we really didn't struggle with the enemies whatsoever. Once again, all 3 Explorer notes were super quick, but on the way to the artifact, I did take a little bit of a swim. Luckily, we were able to get out of there quickly, but that could have been bad. Anyways, I did get all 3 artifacts and put them on the wall. And from now on going forward, I'm not going to say all 3 artifacts. When I say I got the artifact, it means I got all 3. Because once you get one, you just kind of sit there and wait for the other 2. After this, I was flying through the redwoods, and we did stumble upon a 145 Parasaur. So I just kind of flew on a ledge and tranked him out, and he just stared at me like he was giving me a really dirty look and disapproving. After a while though, he did knock out and we were able to tame him up, which is really good because we have some big plans for this guy. Our 12th tame was then named Mama, which gives you a hint at what we're going to use him for. After this, I swooped in on some Dillos fighting a male Rhino and totally stole the kill and the pheromone, returned home, saddled up Mama, and made a fabricated shotgun. I then returned to the spot where there was a female Rhino and I started attacking it with Mama. But you have to be very conscious that you're not doing too much damage or too little with these guys, so you gotta constantly check the health. And then after a while I felt right, and so I fed Mama the pheromone, which made her able to get pregnant. And then after one more swipe it was super low, so it reared back and just penetrated her, got her pregnant immediately, and then just dipped with 0 child support. Kinda messed up. But it was good for us because now we could adopt the baby. Then I was playing Husband Simulator trying to feed it its cravings while it was pregnant, but I didn't actually know how because I'd never tamed one of these, so I kept trying to like force feed it in the inventory. Later I found out that you hold E on it and then like feed it in that option wheel, but I didn't figure that out for a couple minutes. Eventually though I was able to figure it out and I fed it a Kalian soup and a rhino horn, which was really lucky because I know sometimes they want like absorbent substrate, but like those are 2 really easy things to get. Eventually though, Mama exploded before our eyes and a little bug came out. And so that was our 13th tame, and we named it What's Up Doc. I then spent the next about an hour imprinting on it, taking on walks, petting it. We also gave it Mama's death essence, so it'll never forget where it came from. But in the end, we could only get it to 90% imprinting, which is not the end of the world. And then I got Polymer the vegan, ethic, eco-friendly way before making a saddle for our Rhino. Then, after playing around and picking up things that shouldn't be allowed to be picked up in any game, I challenged an Alpha Carno and defeated an Alpha Carno. And then I challenged and defeated another Alpha Carno, but this time with Alfred the Creamsicle. I then constructed a trap because I found a high-level Megatherium that we would need for later. And went ahead and trapped the flying Megatherium. He did this like 4 times, escaped all the other times. I was surprised he actually went in. And then after tranking him for a couple minutes, he was down. And then I was interrupted by a 3rd Alpha Carno, but Alfred the Creamsicle took care of him. And it was actually convenient because I got the prime meat to tame the Megatherium this way. And then our 14th tame was named Barney. Then literally right up the hill from this guy, we found the Holy Grail. Level 30 female. No, I'm just kidding. A level 150 female Megatherium, so we had to tame that. So I immediately went up and smacked her, led her all the way back down to the trap, and she was a nightmare to get in there. It took like 10 minutes. Like, this is what I was talking about. She like flew out of the cage. Anyways, eventually we did it, and she was trapped and ready to be just knocked out. Then we tranked it out, got the food, waited, tamed it. It's at 98%, and my game crashes. It was okay though, because when I came back, she was still in the trap, so all we had to do was retrank her and feed her. And it all became so worth it, because when she woke up, she had 51 points into health, which is just going to make her an amazing health breeder for us to get that stat on all of our Megatherium. The next thing we wanted to do was go ahead and tame ourselves a Sarco to kind of gateway us into the ocean there, but it took a while to find one in the swamp, and I did end up contracting swamp fever, which usually would be a really bad thing, but for some reason there's an achievement to get rid of it, so it was actually pretty convenient for us. And after way too long, I was able to find a 140 Sarco, which we scooped up and took home to tame. And soon enough, he was ready to become our friend. We also got rid of our swamp aids real quick. And then Tame 15 was then called Sammy. We then got him a low-level girlfriend called Selena. Sammy then got busy with his level 15 he just met, and soon enough we had a baby to imprint. We're not going to need her yet, but we did want a good break from the Megatherium. Back to business though, we did find a 135, and while we were building our trap, he walked right in all on his own, joining the team. He did still have to get through our strict recruiting process though. And then I jumped these drunk homeless men for their meat. She then came out with 43 melee, which isn't insane, but paired with the really good health stat, I think it would be good enough for the army. I then started the long process of moving stats around and breeding up an army, but while I did that, I just kind of did a lot of farming and maintenance work around the house. But I got bored very quickly and decided to head out to the last cave we need to fight the spider. For some reason, everything inside was alpha boosted, which meant there's probably an alpha like right above the surface, but it still was not a problem for Alfred. He's an absolute unit. Other than that though, the cave was just as usual. I then bred, imprinted, raised, and leveled 18 Megatherium, which is just beyond boring. So going forward, I'm just going to cut all this out because it was grueling. I also want to mention that dead one on the floor right there is because I had to kill so many because they wanted some crazy imprint foods or something. Eventually though, we did have all 18 ready, and you might ask why not 20? Because we are going to bring in a Daedon and a Uteranus, which is going to be extremely important for this fight. I set out searching for either one, and after about an hour I stumbled upon a level 125 Uteranus, which was going to be good enough for me. We didn't need a super crazy one. And before long, Fuzzball became our 15th tame. Also, a quick note while I'm making the saddle, I did something I haven't done in the full 10 years of playing, and I made a folder in my inventory. And honestly, it's the most underrated thing in the game. Nobody I've ever met does this. But it was so convenient to just throw all my ammo in a freaking folder and keep everything organized. Anyways, after that little tangent, I searched about like 20 minutes all over the map, but then ended up finding a Uteranus right outside of my house, so that was convenient. We then named her Yelena, and Yelena delivered us twins for us to imprint. We then named them Blanket and Pillow, which I really liked their names. But at the end of the day, for some reason my settings only allowed me to get to 91% imprinted, but it was going to be okay. I then got lucky and found an Ovis while I was looking for Daedon, and I happened to have a veggie cake from a drop we got earlier, so Baja the sheep became our 16th tame. I was then getting pearls while looking for Daedon, and then I had our next close call when I got jumped by a Baryonyx in the water. And they can stun you, so my cheeks were clenched. Luckily though, between our good armor and the Baryonyx only being level 20, I was able to get back on What's Up Doc and take care of the threat. And then while searching for Daedon, we killed an Alpha Carno, and then another Alpha Carno, and then got a good Daedon saddle actually. We finally found a 145, scooped it up, and brought it home, where it was named Methamphetamine. And at this point, you guys know the drill. I got him a girlfriend, and I bred the stats onto a baby. This one was named Ketamine, and Ketamine would soon deliver us Heroin, who was going to become one of the main characters of the boss fights of this run. And with him all imprinted up, that means I had all the artifacts and all the creatures I needed, so I just had to farm up the tributes. So next thing I did was place down a box, one for each boss, and then I'd put all the tributes inside of them. But while we were farming up what we needed, we did stumble across that unicorn from earlier, so we took him home and tamed it up real quick. I already had the Argitalon and the Snake Venom, so we killed some Sauropods and some Thylas, and a Thyla gave us this Ascendant map, so we dug it up, and we actually got a really good AR blueprint out of it. So we used that to farm the rest of the Sauropods, and before we knew it, we had all the tributes we needed. I then shoved everyone into their respective Pokeballs, got the rest of the tributes, and we head out to the obelisk. I then threw everyone out at the obelisk, and we had a big old group nap time before the boss fight. I then booted up the easiest difficulty, and before you know it, we were loading into the fight. Once we were in, I hopped on the Yudi and immediately courage roared my whole army. And then the spiders snuck up behind us, so I whistled everything to attack them, and I tried to get out of their way. The fight went pretty smooth from here. The Megatherium were, good enough, had a ton of health, and nothing insane happened. I did forget to get the Daedon out to heal everyone, but we were still able to take it down and win our first boss fight. Once we got back, we fed up the pig to heal everyone up, and then booted up for round 2. Round 2 went more or less the same, but if you look here, some of the Megatherium are stuck in a running animation and aren't actually attacking. But we did have the pig healing this time, which was able to make up for it. We did end up losing one soldier though, rest in peace, but we were able to pull through anyways. Looking at my health though after the fight, my army had definitely seen better days and we would need to perform better in the alpha fight. After the fight, I returned home, placing down the spider flag as well as crafting a bunch of ammo. I then booted up the alpha boss fight, and as you can see here, I have a little bit of a different formation and strategy, with a couple following me and a couple not. As soon as the fight started, I would immediately run past the spider, essentially splitting my army into 2 separate groups. I would have this one attack first, and a couple seconds later I went and got the second group. The goal was to avoid all of the Megatherium piling up and getting attacked while actually not attacking back. And then while they were doing this, I would hop on the Daedon and heal up the army while simultaneously pulling out the assault rifle and shooting the bitch. We repeated this process without any problem for a pretty good amount of time, but eventually when we were only about a fifth of the way done, we had our first death, and it all kind of went downhill from here, to be honest. Because not long after that, when we were only about a fourth of the way done, we had not one die, but 2 more die on us, and I was beginning to get a little bit nervous at this point. Fortunately though, splitting up our army did seem to be a good strategy because we went a little bit without any more deaths. But once we got a little bit under half health, we started to lose a couple more, and then a couple more. And then eventually our numbers would dwindle down to very, very thin. And it was at this point here where I started to get terrified, because there was nothing I could do but watch as my army got ripped to shreds. I started regretting not mutating and everything. But all I could do was keep healing, keep yelling at my Daedon, and keep on blasting. And then after the longest minute of my life, I started to see a little bit of hope as I just kept healing my army and the health kept dwindling down and down, lower and lower. And then even more Megatherium died, and we even lost our Uteranus in the process. He got too close. So it was just me, the piggy, and a couple guys left, but we pulled it off. I mean, we only had, 3 survivors plus the Daedon, and at this point I was ecstatic. I was terrified. I thought it was all over at this point. So I got right up in the spider's pussy and just started hacking away at it. But when I returned home, I found this absolute disgrace who was well within the lines of the teleporter, but did not decide to join his army. He even looked at me like it was my fault, so I had to punish him with a new name. Despite that, I was still in a good mood as I mounted the spider's head on my wall at home. Our business on the island was not over though, as me and Shanna went on the fattest metal run, and then proceeded to use our new infinite chitin to make so much cementing paste. I then got really fed up with our primitive ways, so we sacrificed all the penguin and all the metal to put forth the Industrial Revolution. After this, I decided that it was about time we took to the ocean, so we hopped on Sammy Jr. and we decided to go ahead and get a Megalodon pack, because no matter the level, Megalodon packs in this game are just insanely overpowered. And we then called the taming good when we had about 6 or 8 Megalodon. Then on the flight home I came across this monstrosity here, just raining spawns. Ignoring that, I made a bunch of scuba and a bunch of Megalodon saddles so we can go ahead and set out to try and get ourselves some black pearls. And while we were down there, we quickly got the lowest depth achievement, which was you just kind of had to go down there. And then right after that, we did find an alpha Megalodon, so it was time to put our pack to the test. And like I said earlier, these Megalodon are overpowered no matter what because they're pack bonus. This guy was absolutely no problem. And then a little while after this, we were jump scared by our first Tusa and just absolutely melted the thing no problem. And then the next Tuso we found was inside of a wall, which is like one of the most common things I've ever seen in Ark. All Tusos I find are in walls nowadays. We then spent the next hours and pretty much my full day swimming full laps around the ocean, killing any Tuso we see for some black pearls. And if you're wondering what I did about the weight, I kind of just dispersed all the black pearls I got throughout the whole Megalodon pack, that way no one was encumbered. And I'm also really sorry, it's really hard to get good footage killing Tusos because it's kind of just a mosh pit and then they ink you, so. But at the end of the day, I was flying home on What's Up Doc with about 300 black pearls, so I was very happy about that. And then after a little bit more farming, a whole lot more penguins, and a million trips to and from the obelisk, I was crafting my first tech I ever have in Ark. And after placing it down, I realized I'd totally underestimated the size. This thing was huge. After this, I was brought back down to Earth though after I hatched like a whole bunch of Uteranus eggs that I'd loaded up, and then I put them on the grinder for kibble and just brutally grinded these babies. But then I realized that they have to be adults for you to get kibble, so this was not my proudest moment. Right after this though, we were back on Cloud 9 as I turned on the replicator, I admired it a little bit, made myself some tech boots and a tech helmet, which was super exciting. So I spent the next little bit just playing around, seeing what they do, and wasting time really. I then fixed my previous mistake. I loaded up some fully grown adult Uteranus. They can drink, they can vote, they can do anything. And god, that noise is just gruesome. Like, I raised these guys since they were babies. It's brutal. It's worth it though because we got a lot of good kibble. And we immediately wanted to put this kibble to use because we set out to get our second and last boss creature of the run. And honestly, it would become the MVP. It was good for caves, it was good for underwater, it was good for the bosses, and if you haven't assumed by now, it is the Deinosuchus, which was an absolute godsend. But golly, did we have to earn this tame. I mean, I had over like 6 hours of footage, which is like 2 play sessions for me, just flying around killing Deinosuchus over and over. Eventually though, we did find a 145, and it was really simple, just kind of fed him, waited around for a little bit, and then hopped off, ran up, fed him again. Our resilience was rewarded though because we actually did find a 150 and we were able to get them all tamed up pretty easily. And when it was all said and done, just for scale, I had just under 60 dino skin in my inventory. I then made them get it on, even though they just met, because I wanted a freak child, otherwise known as a mutation, which is a really weird thing to actually look for, but it's okay. And soon enough, I had 2 lines, one for health and melee, and this took a really long time, so it's just going to be going on in the background of this video. I am going to move on, but just know this is happening during all the next steps. First thing I did was quickly head to the beaver dams and then make up some more lesser keys. And then it was off to Carno Island for the artifact of the Devourer Cave. It started off standard. I was just, working our way down till we found the dung beetle, and I did go ahead and tame that, naming it Mr. Poopy Butthole. But then it was down real quick as I totally fell off the ledge, and when I hopped off to avoid fall damage, he got caught on top of the wreckage, so I couldn't hop back on. And I was just getting jumped by a spider. I was panicking at this point. I was just clicking buttons because I knew I could hear everything running at me. So then I got rid of the spider so then I could move. And then I got stuck on the artifact. So then I was getting hit by bats and everything. But eventually I was able to get back on the baryonyx. Fight off the whole swarm that was on top of me. And then on top of that I also got Mega Ravy, so I had to cure that. But then the baryonyx absolute unit was able to destroy everything around us and completely save our butts. I'm definitely counting that as our third close call though. But because I cleared everything at once, we were able to just go ahead and grab the artifact a couple times and then go get the explorer notes. I also just want to point out, this is the dumbest explorer note location in the entire game. Just hit it on a ledge like that, that's just stupid. Then my next health mutation came out as triplets. But I didn't really need triplets, so I guess it was funny, I don't know. Next thing we did was go ahead and try and steal the artifact of the pack, and this was just a pretty uneventful cave, to be honest. I just kind of walked through, killed everything, and got the notes and artifact. Then I went ahead and crafted the gene scanner from the Bob's Tall Tales DLC because I spent my money on the game, I'm gonna freaking use it. And I poked my dino and stole the vampiric trait because I know that thing's overpowered on these guys. And the next thing I decided to do was one of the things I was most scared about going into this playthrough, and that was the underwater caves. So I started with the easy one, and I took in just Sammy. But I know this cave spawns are super inconsistent, so a lot of how hard this cave is based on RNG. And I did get pretty fortunate, and there wasn't any crazy Megalodon packs, any big dinos, just a lot of eels, really. And before we get this third note, how come all the caves have this weird gray texture over them? It's weird, it just looks funky. Anyways, once we got to the actual room with the artifact, things got a little bit harder just because of the jellyfish. So I decided to use my crossbow to take them out, which would be easiest because that way I'm not getting stunned off my mount. And then for the bigger, more difficult tames, I would just use the Sarco, obviously. It did actually take me a little bit to find the artifact. It's a little bit hidden, which is kind of embarrassing, but eventually we were able to collect it. And this finished the set we would need for the monkey. Right after this though, I got a weird death message saying that Sammy was killed, but she was over with the rest of my water tames and none of the other ones died, so I don't know what happened. But when I went to make, I'm keeping it in. When I went to make a replacement, I ended up, oh my god, I ended up hatching twins, Jesus. I then took the time to imprint them all up and named them Sammy 3 and Samantha. And then just a quick note, I spent the next real life 3 days just breeding up Deinosuchus mutations, and I was too scared to AFK because usually when I do that I end up dying, and that would literally just mean the end of everything, so it was a lot. After this though, I was feeling motivated because I could finally actually play the game, and the next thing on the list was to get all the tributes for the boss fight. So I started with Megalodon, and then I moved on to Thyla, and then finally I went downriver to find Theries and Spinos. Finding the Spinos took a while, but eventually we killed a couple and we were good. This meant the last thing that I needed was back inside the cave on Carno Island, and so I just turned on my tech helmet to find some Megalania. And I thought it was funny, they really do just be sticking to the walls. And after a quick couple of trips in and out of the cave, we would just shoot them off the walls and kill them. Soon enough, we had all the tributes we needed. We're back to the necessary boring part after this though, so we piled up all of the gators we used to mutate, and then we set up our 2 with the good stats and mutations. After this, it was imprinting on imprinting on imprinting and raising, so I'm going to cut that out, it's beyond boring, and we decided to bring 19 Deinosuchus and 1 Uteranus. We're not bringing the Daedon, but we will use him later for the rest of the boss fights. And as you can see here, I was super proud of the stats. After mutating and leveling, we had 83 points into health and 73 into melee. Keep in mind, these guys don't get an oxygen stat, but that is still incredible numbers to bring into a boss fight. And we were pretty much prepared to prove this. So after my army healed up, I put them all in cryopods. And I went up ahead and crafted up some fur just because I'm not sure how cold it is, and then grabbed the tributes. Once we got to the obelisk, all I had to do was a quick little nap time with the army, and then load up all the tributes. So the strategy for the monkey part is to leave your army at the very beginning and then lure the monkey over towards your army, opposed the other way around. And boy did it work. We absolutely melted his health bar. I mean, he lasted, no joke, maybe half a minute at most. So then after a while, he was just completely cooked. Feeling super confident after this, we immediately booted up the second fight and did the exact same strategy with the mustard monkey. And he met pretty much the exact same fate. I mean, these Deinosuchus were overperforming and really impressing me. I wasn't sure though about the third one, because for the spider, the alpha was way harder than the beta. But we booted it up anyways. And this guy was definitely much more aggressive. I mean, he was right on our tail. But once he reached my army, they proved to be strong enough once again. I mean, the monkey was really underwhelming. I mean, we were just absolutely destroying him. And this Gigabyte bleed does so much damage once the boss starts to move. And then, after that, we defeated the Alpha Monkey. And just for scale, we had nobody die, and everyone was at least 2/3 of the health. I mean, this Gigabyte is insane bleed damage. I then just left my army at the obelisk to rest, heal, and celebrate. But on the way home, our Ovis unfortunately died. Followed right after that, the unicorn also passed to a direwolf. We were then able to mount the monkey head, leaving 2 of the 3 defeated. And now that we had new tech engrams, we had to go right back to the ocean and spend hours killing more Tusos. I mean, I wish there was another way to get black pearls, other than the Eucaryptids. After this though, we were able to take a quick trip to the volcano, and then craft hundreds of polymer. And it felt like we'd finally reached like the end stage of the game where things really start ramping up and getting difficult. And we'd have a lot of time in here, so it'd really be tragic to die. So the next thing I did was make sure everything around my house was irrigated. That way we could start making up a bunch of health brews. While I was doing this, some of my metal finished smelting and my polymer crafting, so we went ahead and crafted up some tech gloves and the tech rifle. And then I just kind of messed around back at the base. I mean, I'm going to do this every time I get a new tech piece of armor. Come on. It was time to lock in though after this, so I crafted up a couple gas masks for the next cave. In the Artifact of the Moon Cave, there are so many bugs, it's absolutely insane. This is why people take frogs in here or Megatherium, but I knew that my Baryonyx could handle it. But there were bugs on bugs on bugs. Every time we got in a room with bigger enemies, you know, we handled it just completely fine. The bugs just took forever though. I mean, look at this swarm, it's insane. Anyways though, we did end up clearing it pretty easily and get the artifact first actually. We then went back and got all the notes. I couldn't find the footage for the third one, but we did finish the cave completely. The next thing I did was, looking back on my playthrough, the best thing that I did the entire time, and we hatched a baby Deinosuchus named Icy. We named it Icy because initially he was made just to do this ice cave for us, but he became my favorite Ark tame of all time, and I spent so much time with this guy, I can say that confidently. He even saves our life in the most clutch moment in the entire run later on. And right before he grew up, we did make sure to give him the vampiric trait, which was going to make him an absolute unit for the caves and the boss fights. And the second he turned 18, we brought him into the cave, and like I said, absolute demon. His knockback, doing 1,000 damage, allowed him to just take out groups. And as you can see here, he's, if you're facing the right way, immune to Purlovias, which is so clutch. And then not to mention the Gigabyte, obviously the Gigabyte. And even when I did get Purlovia'd, I just stayed right on his back and let him take care of business. I mean, I could glaze all day. He swept through all these huge groups like it was no problem in the cave that I thought to be the hardest in the entire game. And then we got this absolutely insane loot drop, which was an absolute godsend. And then after we cleared a couple more groups just absolutely effortlessly. And if you look at his health in clips like these, it's literally going up because of the vampiric trait. Like, it's honestly insane to me. Eventually though, Icy was able to carry us all the way to the artifact room where we would claim it. We then had to kind of dig ourselves into a hole so we didn't freeze to death as we waited for the next couple, but eventually we did find a spot. Holy cow, look at the loot we got though. Next day, it was back to the oceans because I wanted to find us some Basilosaurus. Basilosaurus are super helpful because they can't be stunned by jellyfish, and they get a ton of toxin, so we'll use them for the caves and to farm toxin for our trank darts in the future. We also needed to kill a bunch of them for the boss tribute, so that was convenient. For a while they were being pretty hard to find, but once I got near Herbivore Island, they did start getting pretty common. And after about an hour of killing them, we killed more than we need for the tribute, and we did end up finding a level 120, which was going to be good enough for me. And we were out searching for a male to breed them with, and we found this Tuso, so we decided to test out our rifle and just blast them. And to be honest, I didn't think it was this good. It just absolutely melted the thing. Eventually we did find a bummy little male though, and we went ahead and tamed it to breed. And I then watched my arranged marriage actually work out, and soon enough we had a little baby named Basil. And as soon as Basil was a rideable age, we took her for a test drive and got some toxin. After this though, it was time to do the thing that I'd been dreading the very most at this whole playthrough, and that's the Explorer Notes. So I installed a mod that shows me exactly where they all are and kind of like leads me to them. And if you think that's cheating, I don't care. And I invite you to install the mod and collect them all, because it is still an absolute nightmare and it's just beyond boring. But we set out to do that, and it took absolute ages, but it actually did get our Rhino to max level, which was another achievement we did need. And I wasn't able to collect every single Explorer Note because there are a couple in the final boss arena, but other than that, we got all the ones that were currently achievable. And I'm not going to show them all because editing this took also absolutely ages.
Just splendid.
After this, we still had a couple caves to clean up, so I went ahead and got some Freya curry and some grappling hooks and headed towards the ice crouch cave. This cave usually isn't too difficult, especially with the tech rifle. Despite being a little bit of a maze, I was able to just blast through all the groups of enemies that I found. And after a couple of quick groups, we were able to find the artifact room and clear this last one. Something that does often happen with this cave though is that the last couple bats are just completely invincible. So you actually have to grab the artifact and then take care of them pretty quickly, which can be a little bit difficult, but it wasn't too bad here. Once again, the tech rifle was a godsend. And then I went ahead and grappled back up and left the way we came because the other way is a little bit more dangerous. After this, I was feeling in a little bit of a cavey mood, so we immediately took Icy and Basil down to the hard underwater cave. Immediately as we entered the cave, we were met with a lot more creatures than we were last time, and Basil was kind of taking the solid chunk of the damage. And then eventually, as I was dealing with this Moza, she completely swam way forward and just completely went out of my sight. And by the time I'd finished the Moza, I had a whole group of everything on me, Tusos, Megalodons, and everything. And unfortunately, Basil did die really quickly. But, fortunately, Icy was a completely breeded up, mutated Deinosuchus boss creature, so he was able to, pick up some slack and take care of the cave for us. After this, the underwater section became pretty tame for a little bit as I was making our way through the cave. And so I went back to the upper land section, and there was a little bit more enemies, but not too much when I got the Explorer Notes. Returning to the water, there was a couple small groups to deal with, and then once we got closer to the artifact room, there was a couple more, dangerous groups, and then finally there was one last big little chunk right before the artifact. Unfortunately though, after I cleared this, the artifact just wasn't there. And I even left, waited around for long enough to want to spawn, and then returned and it still wasn't there. And then I looked it up, and this is a common problem with it not spawning. So I didn't end up cheating one in, which is a shame because obviously I got there, it's all on film. But it kind of taints the run a little bit, makes it feel a little bit less genuine. And on top of this gross taste in your mouth, there is an achievement for personally getting all the artifacts, and we're just not going to be able to get that because it didn't want to spawn. And I even went and checked back later in the run, and it just still wasn't there, so it just kind of sucks. Either way, this marked the 4th and final artifact we would need for the dragon fight, which meant we had to farm up some tributes. Firstly, it was Uranus back at home. Then we visited the volcano to watch another car drown in a lava lake. Should really fix this, honestly. You just kind of wait and it's free gigahearts. Nextly, though, we had to go to the mountains to kill some Allosaurus. And finally, another trip to Carno Island to chomp on some T-Rexes. We then transferred everything we had into the obelisk as well as our army, and while they were sleeping, we got some Kalian soup and med brews. After organizing my boss army and getting us all ready for the fight, I kind of took a minute to appreciate it because I was really scared. This boss's fire breath could absolutely end everything and melt my army in 2 seconds, especially because this army's not the fastest. But I couldn't wait forever and I had to trust my army, so I went ahead and started it up. First thing was first, I led my army over to the flatter part of the map where we had some space, and then we had to wait for the dragon to land. Then it faked landing and immediately caught us all on fire and then flew away. Luckily though, we were able to push through and eventually got to it, getting some good damage in. It kept breathing fire on us, but it also only wanted my Uranus, which meant I was really low, but my army was staying relatively healthy other than the fire damage. So we kind of ran in circles as my army chased it, dealing damage for a while. I was so distracted with my super low health and trying to run away from it in circles, keeping it near my army, because we were kind of all stuck on that pile of rocks over there. But I didn't realize that it was getting really, really low on health, and after it circled around my army one more time, they were able to defeat it. We did beat it, but I wasn't feeling super confident going into the harder difficulties, especially as my Uranus was so low, and my army was about half health. But because I knew that most of this damage came from it spamming the fire breath, I did feel confident enough to start up the next difficulty. Just a quick explanation of that thought process is that all of the boss fight difficulty does the exact same fire breath damage because it's based on percentage. So essentially we were also surviving the alpha's fire breath at that point. The next fight began exactly the same as I led my army over and took a couple shots at the boss. It then landed and immediately breathed fire all over my army. And this one, just like the last, only wanted my Uranus, so once again I was caught running away as my army was able to get bites in. After running around in circles for quite a while with my army attacking it, it breathed fire on us again, which really started to get me worried. But eventually I was able to lose its attention, and then it started attacking my army, which could have been worse, honestly. Because it was chasing me around so much, it was taking so much damage from the bleed my Deinosuchus do, which is also percentage, and that's why we were able to get such huge damage numbers. Now that it was just attacking my army, not only did our damage intake increase greatly, but we were also doing much less damage to the boss. And very quickly after this switch, I started losing Deinosuchus, and they started dropping fast. Despite our army dying very quickly, the boss's health was also getting very, very low, so we kind of just had to stick in there for a little bit. But as you can see, we were losing Deinosuchus left and right. Eventually though, we were able to pull through and defeat the second difficulty, but I was definitely not confident going into Alpha, especially considering we lost 8 Deinosuchus, which is almost half of our army. Funnily enough though, the surviving Deinosuchus actually weren't doing too horrible on health, which gave me a little bit of hope for the next fight. And so, I returned home to raise the next generation of our army. And soon enough, we were back. And when I say soon enough, I mean literally the next day. But anyways, we're ready to start the final dragon boss fight. And there was a trike that wanted to join us. That was cool, but he wasn't allowed in. The strategy was the exact same this time, except I wanted to keep his attention. And it worked. He landed right next to my army, but then still wanted me, so I whistled my army on him, accidentally got my whole army breathed fire on. That one's my bad. But he still did want me, so I was just running away for so long. Running away as my army built up their gigabytes and was able to get some good damage in on him. Eventually though, I did lose his attention, which had me really scared. But as you can see there, we're doing 30,000 ticks of bleed damage because he's still moving in circles, which is just insane to me. And as you can see, his health is really feeling it. Another part that totally changed the fight is that when he breathed fire right there, he didn't get my whole army. If you look closely, they just gigabyted, which means when he flies away here, we're doing 50,000 damage ticks. And you can see in this frame here how many times it procced. And as he's walking back at us, still 30,000 damage. And that's why Deinosuchus are so good for this fight. We didn't even get a single casualty because in the alpha fight he flies away. And usually that's not good because he comes back and breathes fire. But 50,000 ticks like 20 times. I was so excited. I mean, I was physically shaking. Looking back and recapping this fight, if they didn't Gigabyte right before he flew away, I don't think we would have won. I think he would have came back, breathed fire again, and destroyed my army because our health was not that good. We got so lucky with the timing of the Gigabyte, and that is the odds of that are insane because as soon as he flew away and did his laps, he was just getting picked apart. Looking back at this frame here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different ticks for 51,000 damage. I added up all the numbers on the screen and it equals 339,272 damage in like 2 seconds. Anyways, my tangent's over. I just want to express how insane and how lucky that timing is. Because to be honest, it's the only reason we won this boss fight and that the run is still going. I was then able to finish the trophy wall for the first time in my Ark career. I mean, I was so excited. I also had to send a picture to my friends to flex on them. Another first of mine was getting a full complete tech armor set, in which I also sent a picture to my friends to flex on them. And before I wanted to beat the Overseer, I had to tame every single creature you can in the game. So I had to farm up some toxin to get some tranks, and begin the great taming. After we got most of the simple tames out of the way, we had to build ourselves up a little greenhouse to get some farming going because the next tames are going to need some bug repellent. Next up were tames that needed eggs, so first we got the Oviraptor. Then we brought home a Titanoboa, and after tossing him a couple eggs, he became ours. And then finally, we brought home a Troodon, in which we threw out a cryo-sicked baby, and then hopped in the ring so it would attack us and accidentally kill the baby. This is usually how I do it. As soon as it tamed though, I did end up knocking out, which could have been really, really bad. I would have lost everything. And then returning to the caves, we got ourselves an Arthroplora and a Megalosaurus, before riding our Rex for that achievement. Then finally, it was time to tame some ocean creatures. And while we were taming down here, we did use Icy to find and kill an Alpha Tuso. And then he absolutely handled an Alpha Lead Sickness. And I was a little bit worried about Mosas because their torpor drops so quickly, it's way better to trap them. But we were able to find one that was just stuck in the wall, so that was convenient. After this guy was the Tuso. And then it was back to the underwater cave for an eel. We then searched for an hour for a Leopleurodon to tame it and then have it die in about 4 seconds. After that, we broke out Icy so we can get rid of an Alpha Mosasaurus for us. And finally, we got our last underwater tame being the Dunkleosteus. But Icy's work was not done for us because we did need him to take out an Alpha T-Rex and an Alpha Raptor. And after heading home and then to the volcano, we loaded up all the tributes into the tech cave. We still had a couple tames left though, so we brought home and tamed up a Perlovia, and then used a wildflower to knock out and tame a Tapahara. I was then shocked that Achatina aren't passive tames. They just really seem like a passive tame creature, especially with the veggie cake. So it was a little bit weird you had to knock the guy out. I then was pretty excited for this one. It's been a while, but I deployed the OG strategy to solo tame a Quetzal. Next up was something I actually haven't tamed in like a couple years, so that was pretty cool. And then I spent a couple minutes showing my girlfriend that you can pet it and that he does little tricks. Then finally we brought a kangaroo home to tame. And the last thing other than the Titanosaur was the Giga. Obviously I was super scared going into this because, you know, one hit and the whole playthrough was over. It was all a waste of time. But having the tech suit and the tech jetpack just made it an absolute breeze. You just kind of fly over them shooting them and there's nothing they can do about it. I actually first started shooting this one Giga, but then he led me over to his friend who was stuck, so it was kind of a dick move by that Giga, so I just started shooting the one that was stuck. And it didn't take long because obviously neither one of them are super high levels. I then started pumping him with narcotics, just so he doesn't wake up immediately. It takes like 2 minutes. I then decided to give Icy his first challenge and take on the other Giga. I did this kind of because I wanted to get a scale because I know that there's Gigas in the tech cave. And he handled it really well, but I'm still pretty dang scared going in. And upon returning home, we mounted up the Giga, completing another achievement. Before quickly visiting the highest peak to round up another one. It was finally time, guys. I had airlifted every single Deinosuchus, the Uteranus, and the pig all here. I also grabbed the Microraptor because I thought they stopped other ones, but they don't. But it was finally time. And we booted up the Alpha Tech Cave. I was going to waste my time on no Gamma or Beta first. We went Alpha. Because Deinosuchus are pretty slow, I thought it'd be okay to bring them all in and just have them follow me throughout the whole cave. And this way I think we would sweep through the whole cave with no difficulty, and I don't think we'd lose too many in the lava. This way I'd also be riding a mate boosted, vampiric, and courage roared Icy, who is just an absolute demon. But he would meet his match against some level 700 creatures in this cave. The problem with these guys though is that times like these happened all the time. Like they would just get stuck on each other, especially around corners. But every time we just made sure to go back and get them unstuck. My biggest priority throughout the cave was killing Uteranus and killing Microraptors. Because if any Microraptor hit me, it was game over on one shot to everything. Or if I got fear roared and I couldn't get control of my Deinosuchus, it was also over because I'd probably jump into a lava pit. Luckily, my group had an insane damage output, so we were able to sweep through most of these groups pretty easily. But if you ever go through with Deinosuchus, make sure to unclog the corners. Another thing I was sure to do is to get all of Purlovias out of their mounds before you approach the big groups, because they come out of nowhere. It was when we were about halfway down the cave where we found our very first Giga, and we'd have to be very careful here. But we were a group of boss mutated dinos, so we were able to easily overpower him, but he did try to take out my whole army by jumping into the lava. I had to whistle passive really quickly or else they all would have followed him and it would have been over. When approaching big groups, the best strategy I'd found is to get their attention and slowly walk backwards while attacking them, because that way if I really get in trouble, I can just take a step to my army, or I could handle the group on my own. Yet another thing I had to be super conscious of was all of these Arthroplora, because if I lost my armor, it was basically game over, because the elements, not only the hot in the volcano, and then the extreme cold in the boss arena, would have taken me out surely. Luckily though, dinos seem to have super short aggro ranges and kind of take their time in this cave, so I was able to get a gigabyte off, and then my whole army would sweep in and kind of take out the group. And every once in a while something like this would happen where only one dino's aggroed and we were able to just keep it away with our knockback and slowly pick them off one by one. And we did have one super cheeks clenched moment where I did actually get Purlovia'd, but luckily we had just taken care of all the bigger dinosaurs that would absolutely one-shot me in this cave. And using all these methods, we were able to slowly creep through the cave until we finally reached our second Giga. Luckily though for us, this guy was much easier to deal with than the last because he was facing the lava, so all I had to do was shoot him and his turn radius took him right in for a swim. And like I mentioned earlier, we were able to just kind of walk through the smaller enemies with our knockback, and in cases like these, the vampiric trait actually heals me, so I benefit from these interactions. And then the #1 most insane thing in my life happened to me playing this game. As you can see, I'm fighting a Megalosaurus, which will grab you and instantly kill you at this level. And as I'm doing this, I get Microraptored off my mount. And I am not over my gator. I'm going to fall down and I'm going to get grabbed or attacked by something. But then Icy, the genuine legend, turns, catches me, ducks me under 2 Purlovia, and then ducks me to the side around another one. All 3 would have brought me into the lava. And then not only that, but he then runs away from the Megalosaur that's trying to grab me and gets me around the army, saving my life. Absolute legend performance. Remember when I said he was my favorite tame? It's because even the catch would have been immaculate, but then to protect me from all of that was almost impossible. Also, looking back at the footage, it wasn't the tail whip attack. He literally just turned around, caught me, and brought me to safety. And then after one more Rex, we were just there. We did lose 1 casualty to the lava, but we made it to the end of the cave. Then at the teleporter, I organized 15 surviving Deinosuchus, as well as the Yudi and a pig. And then it was time. Every single moment led to this. Every single tree we farmed, rock we smashed, dino we tamed, everything we had done was for this very single moment. As we entered the arena, I mean, you just kind of have to appreciate how gorgeous it is in ASA. It's beautiful. Me and my army slowly walked through, really just admiring how gorgeous everything was. I actually got way too carried away in the moment and almost died. That would have been so embarrassing. Dying to the cold after all of that, oh my goodness. But as the fight started, I whistled aggressive onto the Overseer and watched them go to work. As soon as he was out of the bubble, they gigabyte it. And they actually procced it to start the first boss fight through just bleed. As the boss formulated into a spider and my Daedon was healing, I could feel my confidence in my small army growing, watching that health bar shred down little by little. And they forced it right back into its shield in no time at all. And my Yudi was doing a great job keeping aggro of all of these little robot, annoying, pesky little guys, and the Daedon was doing an amazing job of healing the army. Next up was the monkey that we had absolutely no trouble with in the actual boss fights, and it was kind of the same story here. The speed at which a Deinosuchus army, even this small, can shred a boss is absolutely mind-blowing. And before it turned into the dragon again, I decided to hop on the Daedon and get some good healing into the army. And as it turned to the dragon and immediately breathed fire on us, I was getting PTSD from when we lost 8 Deinosuchus. But it just didn't have the health as the normal dragon, and we were able to tank it through it. And I was also able to hop on the Yudi and implement the same strategy as earlier, which was honestly could have been a game changer. And as it switched back to its normal form, it was able to stun me off my mount and kill a Deinosuchus, so we were getting casualties at this point. But I was quickly able to hop back on a dinosaur and feel a little bit more safe before it died to bleed damage. And guys, we had done it. We'd beaten Ark on the hardest difficulty on hardcore mode. I mean, it felt really good, to be honest, because there was a lot of stress, a lot of time, and this just felt good. I immediately ran to find Icy, who was not only the savior of the run, but also just my best dinosaur friend throughout the whole thing. So we sat there together and we watched it as we ascended. Our job wasn't over though. We're not here to beat Ark, we're here to 100% Ark. So as I woke up for only the second time in this whole playthrough, I was a beach ball again. But that didn't matter. I had one thing left to do, and one thing only. We had to tame a Titanosaur to complete the 91st out of the 90 other tames we've done. So I crafted up a cannon and a ton of cannonballs. We then turned our Quetzal named Titan Taker Downer into a warship and strapped a cannon on his back. We then marked our prey with our fancy new tech binoculars, which I feel like is really not good enough for the alpha tech, but whatever. And our first connection, boom, right to the face, 725 damage. Boom, we were feeling good, This was followed up by a miss. And then, boom, another connection right to the face. But when I went to reload, we got trampled. And we died. It was all over. Everything was gone. But to be honest, guys, I didn't think I was ever going to be able to tame a Titanosaur solo. I could do it with a buddy. I've done it with a buddy, but solo it's just a bit much, and I didn't think I was ever going to get it. But that being said, I was so proud of where we come at this point. I was not expecting to get this far, and, you know, I had a ton of fun doing it. Took a lot of time, and definitely editing took a lot of time. If you're still here, like and subscribe, I guess. I mean, I have to ask at this point. Please, we're so close to 1,000 subscribers. That's my goal when I go back home from college. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely worth it. I'm technically haven't 100% of the game because I didn't play on the center and that artifact wouldn't spawn, as well as not being able to tame the Titanosaur. But I've been working on this video for a month non-stop every single day, so I mean it would mean a lot if you guys would interact with the video. Really keeps me going, to be honest. But yeah, I mean it was a ton of fun, totally worth it. Probably not going to do it again.